Hello guys, welcome to another weekly breakdown video. Today I am backtesting the first week of February, as you can see, and I have done this backtesting yesterday, but I'm making this video today due to some circumstances. But yeah, as you can see on the weekly time frame, the market has been making indecision candlesticks for a while now, but now, as you can see, at least this is clearer than all of these candles right here, right? This is clearly a bearish candle with a wick to the upside, clearly showing that now last week the sellers were strong in the markets. So this is when I start to look for sells. So my weekly bias going to the next week, 1st February, was bearish. My weekly bias was bearish, and on DXY, oh, it's taking a lot of time. So now coming on DXY, as my weekly bias on GU is bearish, so DXY my bias will be bullish, as I've written here in the text. So if I'm bullish on DXY, where will I target? In the weekly time frame, we mark the demand, supply, fair value gaps, you know the drill by now, and the targets, right? So now my bias going to the next week was bullish, so I was targeting this sort of draw of liquidity and also this fair value gap to fill on the weekly time frame. And we also have to keep in mind that now on the weekly time frame, this is the low that caused this high, so there were no pullbacks here, no bearish candles, so there are literally, this is the demand, so these supply zones will not be as strong on the weekly time frame because the market is going up. Now I have to mark supply zones, right, where that's a rule. So this supply zone is, I didn't mark because it didn't cause any market structure shift. That was the reason. Even here the same sort of thing. So there was a fair value gap here, but no problem, we will mark the supply zones on the daily time frame. Okay, so weekly bias was bullish going to the next week, targeting that draw of liquidity. And also let me show you one thing, and also one more thing is, whenever the market is trending and it is not leaving any fair value gaps in the higher time frame, that means the trend is strong. Clearly it is not given any fair value gap, so it doesn't need, it can obviously, but it doesn't need to come back to fill up the fair value gap. So that was a very good sign on the weekly time frame. So now going on the daily, time frame, the market has been choppy, and this was the last low that caused this higher high, and the market has been bullish since. The technicals were bullish since, and still now the market is bullish. So obviously I will have to wait for some sort of confirmation that I need a change of character. The market will only change character once it body close below this low here. Body close, you can argue here, but also body close with huge momentum. So this one, that was the reason I didn't consider this as a market structure shift. As you can see, the market has been ranging here for a while. So now going on Monday, my bias will be bearish because of how this Friday candle closed. I decide my daily bias on the daily time frame looking at the previous candles, as you know, right? So this was the bearish candle on Friday, so on Monday I was looking for sells, and this is when I start to go on the lower time frames. So let me also show you the DXY. So on DXY I will only show you the daily bias, as you guys know, because it might take, I told you that on DXY we mark the supply zones, right? So at the start of the week I marked this supply zone, I marked this sort of supply zone here, but why I have changed this supply zone and unmarked it to mark this supply zone here? Because this supply zone was not respected on the week that we will see as the backtesting goes by, and also the fair value gap was here, fair value gap was here. Those fair value gaps are very far away, so those are irrelevant. So now the only thing that matters is going on Friday my bias is bullish, and also it can, but it doesn't need to come down to go up again. So that was interesting. So going on Monday, now I am looking for sells. As I've told you, on the 4-hourly I marked the previous week highs and lows. This was the fair value gap on the 4-hourly. Fair value gap on the 4-hourly. You can also argue there was a fair value gap here, but I didn't mark this because the market, if the market continues down from here, then I would have marked this, but who knows, the market is not open yet, so that's why I've marked this. It's literally on intelligence that is learned only by self-experience. What experience, self-experience and self-failure can teach you, feedback can teach you, No one in the world can teach you that. So that's one thing. And also on the 4-hourly, on the hourly time frame, now if I'm looking for sells, obviously I'm looking for supply zones, right? So on the hourly I can't spot any supply zone because of this huge move right here. The only thing that I can spot is this 4-hourly fair value gap, and on the hourly I mark the day highs and day lows, which is not marked because obviously the back testing has been done already. And on the 30 minutes, you might argue this is the supply here, but obviously until and unless, this is the reason I wait for the Asian range to close, because the market might react from here, react from here, right? And also whenever there is a fair value gap, the market can go and react from the fair value gap. But why we don't like trading fair value gaps is the market can have a move after filling up 10% of fair value gap, 20%, 50, 90, nobody knows, right? That is the reason. But if you are trading a supply or demand zone, whereas in this case you exactly know you want the market to reach here and then reject, so that's why we trade fair value gaps. And now wait for the Asian range. So now this is very important. Look, there was a fair value gap here, but this fair value gap now is irrelevant because of how this Asian range closed, at least for Monday. So now what I will do is I'll go to the M30 to mark the supply if I can spot any according to the Asian range. According to the Asian range, the closest supply on the M30 that I could spot is this one, but it's in the Asian range. So on the 30 there was none. So this is when I go to the M15. So M15, there is a supply zone here. The previous week low is taken early on, and also on DXY the previous week high was taken, I remember. So this is when I wait for my timing, which is 1:30, because it's the daylight savings are off now, so London starts at 1:30. And there was inducement here. This was 1:45 p.m. candle on the Indian session, IST, Indian Standard Times, which was a winner, bro. Look at this, perfection. What I did was I followed the daily bias, I followed where the market was headed, I marked the order block, I waited for the Asian range to close, I waited patiently for everything to happen, and then took the trade without any reservation or hesitation. Losing is part of the game, no problem. This trade, if it was a loser, I would accept it. Yeah, so yeah, this was a losing trade, winning trade, but I didn't backtest it. You can argue I didn't backtest this trade because the market is still doing sort of choppy. And yeah, after this day, now if I get continuation to the downside, that is when I will start backtesting, because this might just be a down move for the sellers, and buyers might continue again. So that was my reasoning. And now also going on, also one thing, on Monday there was no news. On Monday there was no news on London session, but there was news on New York session, so we traded London, so no problem. And going on Tuesday, also this week is not a high impact dominated week, as you can see. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, there is no such adequate amount of news. And also on Thursday, even on the Forex My FX Books calendar, there are no such high impact news like CPIs and PPIs, so it was a good week to trade. So going on Wednesday, still now this demand is now not respected. You can argue that still this much demand is left, so obviously I will mark this demand until and unless the price shows me that it's not respecting the demand, it has swept the liquidity. I will still mark it, obviously, because what can Tuesday do? Go and rebalance the price, right? So that can happen, we know that concept. And now this is when I unmarked this supply. This supply was clearly disrespected by this Monday's candle, so that is when I mark this supply zone on the daily. And if this supply zone is not respected, I will mark this supply zone, and then this, so on and so forth. We adapt to the market, we don't predict, remember. So going on Tuesday, my bias is bearish again, so this is when I go to the H4 again. There is also no news, and on the H4 the market has literally gone down, so there will be the market structure on the H4 is bearish. And on the hourly, even on the hourly, this is the lower highs, lower lows, lower highs, lower lows, lower highs, lower lows. So on the hourly I can already spot the supply zone, which will be here, and let Monday play out. But look, you can argue there is a supply zone here, but obviously we'll wait for the Asian range, right? Also the DXY bias is bullish, so that's done. Monday waited for the Asian range to close, obviously. after the Asian range is closed here, I go to mark the closest supply zones. Obviously I'm looking for sells, so I was looking for sells from this sort of M30 supply, because this supply zone here, this was a supply zone, but this supply zone was already mitigated. You can argue the Asian range already mitigated, so that was not strong. So I waited for this liquidity. I targeted this zone as liquidity, external liquidity, to take a trade, and which was also a winner, bro. Even Tuesday was a winner, Monday was a winner, Tuesday was a winner. So 2 days winning streak. So this is why you should follow your rules. But this trade I didn't took because it was 12:30, and 12:30 we don't take a trade. We wait for the 1:30 to induce it and then go down, which didn't happen. So you can argue that this trade was a missed trade because of not our setup not appearing, whereas you can see that the strategy is literally working. And yeah, as I told you, now the market can come and fill up, rebalance the price on the daily time frame, which it did. Now it has made a small fair value gap here, and we can anticipate the market to go and fill up that fair value gap. Whereas on DXY, the market is respecting this sort of supply zone on the daily time frame. And yeah, on Wednesday I am looking for sells to fill up this fair value gap on the daily time frame, small fair value gap, so which is not aligning with the weekly bias. So the trades, the bias that is not aligning, obviously even if your weekly bias is bearish, it doesn't need to always go down, right? It will obviously have a pullback. So when it is having a pullback, you can do two things. You can either trade, or that's a low probability trade, to be honest, because it's not aligning with the weekly bias. You can take a trade or you can't, or you can decide if you want to take a trade or not. So going on the 4 hourly, the market is still bullish, sorry, still bearish. So obviously wait for the Asian range, Wednesday to close, Tuesday to close. And also on Wednesday there is no sort of news, no news on even on Wednesday. So also whenever there is no news and the banks are open, it's a high probability to trade. And also now it is in the it is also very close to the 4 hour supply zone right here. So that is when we go to the H1 time frame. And if I was looking for something on Wednesday, I was looking for sells, buys, obviously, because my bias has changed. And obviously wait for the Asian range to close. On Wednesday I didn't got any sort of trade, I guess. Did I didn't. So let me show you what I was looking for on Wednesday. On Wednesday the market closed something like this, and I wanted the Asian range liquidity to get swept, previous structural liquidity here to get swept, and make a move from this sort of demand. If I was looking for something, I would look for something like this. And yeah, so which the market didn't do. It was a continuation setup. The bias was correct. It was just that we didn't do the trade. The bias was correct. The strategy is still working. Many people will tell that the strategy is not stopped working. No, bro. The bias was clear. We took the trade with the bias. If we took the trade with the bias, it would have been clearly a winner. So now going on Thursday. My bias again bullish, which is not aligning with the weekly bias. Obviously, that is the reason I didn't took the trade on Wednesday. So now on Thursday, the bias is still bullish until and unless the market shows me that it's now continuing to the downside. I will continue to look for buys, whereas on the same thing on DXY, sells. And also this is when I go to look for news. And on Thursday there was unemployment claims on 7 p.m. So this is when I go to the 4 hourly again, and yeah, I'm looking for buys. So on the 4 hourly there is no market structure shift yet. You can argue this is the market structure shift. Because if you consider this candle, but I don't. So it's tricky. To be honest, this is tricky. Monday was clear. Monday you could have taken the trade. Tuesday you could have taken a trade. You already won 2 days. So obviously in the live markets, if something like that happened, I won't trade. I won't compromise it. So yeah, if I was looking for something, that would be buys, and buys from this sort of demand and this sort of fair value gap after sweeping this previous structural liquidity, which was on the M15. The market literally consolidated. The London session yesterday on Wednesday literally consolidated. So yeah, this was also a winning trade. Wow, previous structural liquidity sweep, M15 fair value gap. This was a fair value gap trade, as you can see, a beautiful rejection at 2:15 p.m. IST, and then the rest was history. Okay, this was a break-even trade. And also this trade, the Asian range was very small, 12 pips Asian range, I guess. So whenever the Asian range is small, your stop loss should be small, and whenever the Asian range is big, your stop loss will be big. That's how it goes. So now going on Friday, my bias is still bullish according to how this candle closed, and it's not aligning with the weekly bias, so I'm not confident trading this. Whereas if it was bullish continuing to the upside, Friday I would look for buys on USD, which is aligning with the weekly bias, but right now it's not aligning with the weekly bias. And also the fair value gap, there is a fair value gap, it can go and fill up this fair value gap. So if I was looking for something, if, keyword is if, in the live markets I would not trade this obviously, but if I was to trade this, I would look for buys. That's what I'm saying. So going on Friday, I would look for buys from some sort of demand. If I'm looking for buys, demand zone. And on Friday also there was no news, so this was a very good week as per the news, but yeah, there was no opportunities. So on the hourly, we'll wait for the Asian range to close as always. And I was looking for what I was looking for. Okay, I was looking for this sort of demand on the M15 and also target the previous day highs. So it was a continuation setup, I guess. So the market did went up and came down again, came to our demand zone. I took the trade? I didn't. On Friday I didn't took the trade because it literally didn't make sense, but it did play out, bro. Whenever I don't take a trade, it do play out. So yeah, whenever you have marked a zone, always monitor that zone, because the market can have its move because you have not marked the zone. The market has shown that there is a zone there, and yeah, you have marked those zones. And also the previous day high was taken, so I can guarantee you that DXY has taken the previous day low right here. Previous day low was taken on DXY. That's why the GBP USD has taken previous day high, because they are internally correlated. So this was the back test for the last week, and yeah, on to the next week now.